Welcome to my three studio guests. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Elijah, I'm going to start off with you. We've heard there that teachers, and we know historically that teachers face a lot of challenges in the classroom. They are under-resourced, underpaid, classrooms are overfull. It's not an ideal situation, but they do put in long hours, and a lot of teachers are very passionate. What policy changes need to be made to better the circumstances for teachers so that they can equip children with the best kind of learning?
Well, we are studying the report now. In terms of what policy changes, the Minister will make that announcement on the 16th of July when she tables a budget vote speech for the basic education sector for the next financial year, and possibly giving a strategic view towards the 5 years that she's been given to be in the department. So in terms of what is going to happen next, that will come from that speech. But what is important is that teachers have finally been given a voice to talk about what is happening in schools and tell us what it is that we need to attend to. And we appreciate that, because we were the only country on the continent to have participated in that study out of 48 countries from around the world.
But surely it shouldn't take an international survey of this kind, and I'm going to come to you, Namo, so that for teachers to have a voice. Surely we should be engaging teachers locally to say on a regular basis, what are the things that you need? What are the things that you're struggling with? Instead of waiting for an international report and then giving feedback and saying, okay, well, based on this.
I would say this report vindicates us. We have long been saying these things. The department is aware of this. But what we like most is that perhaps now even the ordinary people, the narrative that is there politically, because the issue of education and the issue of teachers has been politicized. We are happy with the fact that this will perhaps change the narrative that is there politically, because people are using education, they are using teachers to fight political battles. So we feel this is objective. Perhaps now the narrative towards teachers will change.
I'm going to come back to you, Hopalang, in a while. I want to come to Elijah quickly just first and say, what are the key things that you took out of this? I mean, it doesn't take an international community to give us perspective on our own issues. We know what the issues are here. But was there anything that came out of this report or survey that was perhaps surprising, or that you felt this is the one or two things that we should take from here and drive that forward?
No. You see, when you're about to make a case, you need to have credible empirical research, and that's what we have now. Okay. We don't have anecdotal stories that people used to tell about what they think teachers are saying. Even though the teachers themselves were saying it, it wasn't structured. Now it's structured. We have a good document that tells us what's happening in the system, and we interact with our teachers on a day-to-day basis. But what we found interesting was the fact that some of the things that our teachers were saying in the study are confirmed by teachers from other countries, which means we are not unique. The teaching profession is facing the same challenges. Where there are successes, we are going to take from those other countries. But we appreciate the fact that up to 97% of the teachers surveyed, they did indicate that they attend training programs that the department is offering. And also, that is done in partnership with the teacher unions themselves. We have the Teacher Institute to try and motivate teachers, try upskill our teachers, make sure that they are in tune with what is happening at the moment.
Okay. There are a couple of key issues I want to lift out of this. And Hopalang, I want to come to you now from Equal Education. And your organization doesn't just fight for equal education among learners itself, but I'm assuming looking at equality in the profession itself. So one of the key factors that came out of this was that only 22% of South African teachers, I got that correctly now, are female. So that's quite a huge disparity in terms of, principals. Mm-hmm. I was thinking of principals specifically. Yes. So the ability of female teachers to grow in their craft and to lead schools eventually, what still needs to be done to make sure that that becomes an opportunity that they can pursue, and that would be something that is going to obviously draw more teachers into the field if they know that one day I don't just have to be a teacher for the rest of my life, I can be a principal as well.
Okay, perhaps let me just start off by saying that we believe that it's a very positive move that the department participated in this study. As Nomusa said, there is a sense of vindication around the public discourse, particularly around teachers. I mean, the challenges in the profession have been placed solely on their laps. But this study definitely provided an overview of some of the difficulties that they're confronted with that don't enable teachers to execute their function, their mandate adequately. And as you said, we do need to put in place policies to address some of these challenges. But again, some of these challenges we've known about for a while, including, for example, the issue of school safety. In terms of gender parity, obviously there needs to be more of an effort to ensure that teachers the teaching profession is more gender inclusive, and principals in particular, that leadership is also gender inclusive. I believe that this is an effort that the department also needs to make, and school governing bodies also need to make. But our concentration has been very much around issues of safety, of resourcing in schools, and so on.
Thank you. Nomusa, I want to come to you and chat about teacher education or teacher training. The study found that only 1 out of 4 teachers in South Africa have not completed any tertiary education. That 1 in 2 teachers, that's 56%, have completed a short-cycle tertiary program. We've heard that there's ongoing teacher training from the department, and the teachers are encouraged to continually upskill themselves and become aware of the latest teaching practices. Are there any shortages? What is the lack in terms of teacher training before they enter the profession?
It's one of the few issues that surprised us with this study, that part on teacher training, because I would say from our studies, the majority of teachers have got the basic training, have got the basic diploma. The majority, I think 90%, more than 90%, have got the diploma. What is lacking is that is the bachelor's degree, but most teachers do have the basic entry level, which is a diploma in South Africa. Okay. But if you were to compare it with all OECD countries, we are way behind, because, for instance, in countries like Finland, the basic is a master's degree. But here in South Africa, most teachers do have the basic that is required by this country.
Okay. Elijah, just to corroborate something with you, in township schools, if you have a grade 10, you're allowed to teach grade R pupils. Is that true? Is that being practiced?
Yeah, the issue of grade R comes from 2002, when we put in place measures to try open up our schooling to improve access. What we had there was a focus on access. We didn't think about the people who are going to be teaching those children. That's ECD. And we've now been able to have over 800,000 children at the ECD level. Which is what we are now paying attention to. You might have heard the president also talking about ECD migration and the improvements that are going to be made there. So that's one of the issues that we are trying to do. In fact, some of them don't even have that grade 10, because it's just old women and men who have taken it upon themselves to make sure that children are in school and they are learning something, which we appreciate. But now the intention and the plan is to make sure that we improve the conditions of service, we standardize the curriculum, we make sure that the activities that learners and the children are engaged in are geared towards preparing them for schooling. So that's what we are working on now. In fact, you will be hearing a lot of policy speeches from MECs as well as the minister talking about exactly that, because that's our focus right now.
Super, and certainly those ECD programs hopefully will play a large role in terms of adding to basic literacy and numeracy for grades going up from there. I want to bring in our fourth guest via Skype now. The National Teachers Union's Professor Sitwalwa Emenda, sorry, I mispronounced your name there. Thank you for joining us. I want to chat to you about remuneration. Teachers are possibly one of the most important assets that we have in making sure the future generation is capable and can live up to the task and can contribute to society. Yet teachers are badly remunerated. We know the country is under-resourced. We have a lack of funding to increase the remuneration for teachers. What do we need to see going forward?
Well, let me start by hoping that you can You can hear me?
We can.
Okay. I think this finds itself in one of the first, actually this is the first assessment that came out regarding the profile of the teachers. And what was said there, as you said at the beginning, was that only about 50%, you said 49%, of the teachers wish to be teachers in the first place as a career, as a first choice career destination. Now that speaks to the status of the profession in the country, whereby in the past many people really wanted to become teachers, but now we are seeing that out of those that are in the profession, only approximately half wish to be there in the first place. Now what that means is that there's a lot that needs to be done in improving the status of the profession so that it can attract many people, which has already started to happen, by the way. I think that in the next cycle, we are going to get a much higher percentage than 49%, because now we have started seeing bursaries being set aside for people wishing to become teachers. So that is definitely going to attract more and more teachers. But beyond that, one of the issues is that, as my colleagues were saying, beyond the first entry qualifications, it looks like the department has no plan to incentivize people to go for higher qualifications. And that tends to manifest itself in a situation where people who go out and do their honors and masters and doctoral degrees are not adequately remunerated within the teaching profession. And they tend, therefore, to exit the profession at the point where they get higher qualifications, because the department appears to be reluctant in incentivizing them directly. The continuous professional teacher development program that gives them points is not enough to retain them in the system. And if they have to be retained in the system, the department needs to have a remunerative structure that actually reinforces people that have higher qualifications than the basic entry-level qualifications. So that is one way to retain people with higher qualifications, by reviewing the salary structure and the other incentives so that they are encouraged to stay.
Thank you very much for that, Professor. I want to come back to you, Hopolang, and just talk about the issue of safety. You brought that up a little bit earlier. It's one of the main issues that's being sort of spotlighted in the media at the moment. There's been a large outcry, various incidents across the country, not only of learners facing violence amongst each other, but teachers becoming victims of violence either from outside the school or from learners themselves. How do we better put teachers in situations where their ability to do their basic job is not compromised by the issue of safety?
Right. So we have said as Equal Education that school violence is a persistent threat to both learners and teachers. We've campaigned on the issue for about 4 or 5 years now, specifically in the Western Cape. And as you said, it's played out in the public domain quite recently. And this study pointed it out as one of the key aspects in the South African context that's really problematic or an issue. And our opinion on it has been we need to address what is happening with the community and the school community, what is happening in and around schools, because children mimic what is happening within their surrounds. And one of our proposals has been the compilation or putting together an interministerial task team that doesn't only consist of SAPs and the Department of Basic Education. So it shouldn't be reactionary, but should be proactive. How do we address this? Social development has to be in there. The Department of Health needs to be in there. So it's like psychosocial support systems need to be in there. It's not a physical element. There are a lot of other factors that are also in play. So this study basically affirmed A, what we have seen play out in the last couple of months, and B, what we've been campaigning on for a very long time.
And Musa, those psychological factors impact on other situations as well. Teachers are not only in classrooms that are too full, they're also dealing with a variety of learners, different language proficiencies. They're dealing with special needs learners in regular classrooms to try and integrate them. There's a lack of ability to identify learners with specific needs and separate them and isolate them in a way that not only encourages their learning factors, but also allows the other children in the classroom to learn at their optimum levels. How do we enable teachers and those surrounding professions to work together to sort out those systemic failures?
We've long been calling for psychosocial support in our schools, that it cannot be that it's just the teacher and the learner only, because schools are part of society. We need social workers. You know, if there are problems that are identified, we need psychologists. If there are problems that happen within the schools, they can be referred to those. But we find that very little of that is happening, or there are not enough those support structures to come into our schools and be there and be more prominent in our schools, because it takes long. We take to send a child perhaps for remedial, or to send a child for
evaluations.
Evaluations. We feel this should happen more often, and there should be many people brought in to ensure that there is such support.
Elijah, is that also a budgetary problem, that it's not just time, yes, but that there's also budget constraints allowing for that interaction?
Well, you know, there's a lot. I see on your screen there, you say the education system needs to be fixed or needs urgent fixing. An impression must not be created that the fixing is not happening. The fixing actually has been happening for over a long period. But one of the significant changes that took place was in 2009, when basic education was created and higher education stood side by side. And we were then able to zoom into the challenges that were facing the basic education sector. And since then, a lot of things have taken place. And in fact, in this discussion, we are talking about the elements that support the core business of basic education, which is curriculum implementation. All these things that we're talking about, they are supposed to be supporting the core function. And for you to be able to fix that system, you need everyone else. The issue of safety, you need members of the community. You need those criminals to be exposed, the police to arrest them, and justice system to put them in jail forever. We need to be training teachers, and we need to be assessing what it is that they're doing right inside the classroom. And the interaction and the partnership that is taking place, equal education, they need to be monitoring, which is something that they're doing. So what we need to do now, and of course we've been building schools, but in the process of building the schools, you need to make sure that the users are maintaining the schools, that keeping them in good shape, so that what should be happening inside the classroom is taking place in the way that it should. So there's a whole host of things that are taking place, and there's some successes as well. We feed 9.6 million children every day through the school nutrition program. Kids don't pay school fees at school. So there's a whole lot that is happening. What we need to do is to say, what is it that we can do to support the work that is currently underway? Not make as though nothing is being done. We should start now to fix the system. No. The system is on the rise. Most of the research work that has been published is actually indicating that the issues are being addressed. All that we need to do is to make sure that we improve the pace of delivery of critical services that will make the system to work better than it is at the moment.
And I think because children are an emotional issue, that urgency is felt quite keenly, not only in communities and learners and parents, but by teachers and educators themselves wanting to improve the system. Right, we're going to take a very short break. We'll come back to this discussion very shortly. Do stay with ENCA. This is Story of the Week.